everybody. My name is Anna Burkett, and I am a middle school Spanish teacher. I teach for the Howard County Public School System in Howard County, Maryland. Specifically, I teach at a school in Laurel, Maryland, kind of right on the Howard County, Prince George's County line. And today I'm really excited to share some ideas with you for a unit that's kind of built around student choice and some independent work options. I came up with this structure for a unit because I really wanted to build some more opportunities for some independent work and some self-guided work into my classes. And I saw that my 8th grade students especially were really motivated by having choice and were kind of interested in taking ownership of their learning. I also noticed that in terms of the input portion of learning, sometimes I felt like in teaching, I was kind of getting in their way more than I was helping. And I wanted them to have opportunities to have kind of authentic, messy interactions with the language before I did any of that kind of intervening or mediating between the language and them. Like, I wanted to see what would happen if they just got to interact with the language on its own. So I developed kind of a unit structure for independent work. And one of the nice things about this is I did this back when we were in the classroom, but it also could be done pretty easily remotely using a learning management system. Canvas is what we use in Howard County, or you could also do it on the Google platform. So I'm excited to show you guys some of the resources that I've made, and hopefully you find this structure useful and it might be something that you could implement in your own classroom. Right. So I am very excited to show you guys some of these resources. So when I set up this activity for my students, first of all, I make sure they know the standards ahead of time. So for all of my units, regardless of if it's this kind of self-directed work or our standard operating in the classroom, I use standards sheets that have a list of the standards, and it gives the students a space to track their proficiency level and how well they are learning these standards. So from the very beginning, like, I explicitly communicate what they are expected to learn during this unit. And I think that that's especially important when we're doing this self-guided work because it helps ground them in the purpose of the unit. Now, once we look at the standards, I did put together a kind of roadmap for them. And you'll see that it's in 3 steps. So, paso uno is vocabulary. So students have a vocabulary handout, and I'll show that to you in a moment. And their first 2 tasks are to copy the vocabulary from the Google Slides. Now, this is, I think, a good method. I housed everything in a Google folder. And the nice thing about having them go in and copy the vocabulary from the Google Slides instead of just giving them a vocabulary handout is that it does give them a chance to kind of get acclimated to the platform and learn where things are. And that's going to be important. The other part that they have to do is I've imported all of that vocabulary into Quizlet, and they have to spend some independent time in the classroom practicing pronunciation in Quizlet. Quizlet will pronounce the words for the students, and they can practice that pronunciation. Then to finish this step, they have to come and check pronunciation with me, and I'll choose 2 to 3 words to kind of spot check and ask them to pronounce them. If you have students in your class that really excel with pronunciation or are heritage speakers, this is also a task that you could delegate to a student. And they just have to complete that before they move on. So just to give you a sense of the vocabulary, I'll give them a handout that looks like this, that has images to represent the vocabulary. And then they need to go to the slides presentation. And and copy down the words. And we try to avoid English as much as we can, choosing words that are representative of the vocabulary so that the students can associate with that. So that's step 1. Paso dos is input activities. So you'll see I've asked them to choose 5 actividades, 5 activities from column 1 and 5 activities from column 2. Now, the students don't necessarily know this. They're probably going to figure it out, but column 1 was all reading activities. And they do have some sort of kind of processing activity that go along with them. It might be News ELA is a platform with leveled news articles, and it'll auto-generate multiple choice questions. I used some resources from Zachary Jones' website, San Bombazo, and those have activities that go with them. And then column 2 was all listening activities. So you're making sure you're giving them reading input, written input, and auditory input. Now, I told them they could complete column 1 and column 2 in order, or they could go back and forth. Again, kind of giving them choice of what order to choose their activities and complete their activities, and that gives them some ownership over the learning. One of the nice things about this is for your quick finishers, you have some differentiation built in. So I have some students who do good work and work really fast, and they enjoy kind of the satisfaction that comes from getting a lot of work done. And I had students who completed all 8 of these tasks instead of just 5, and they really enjoyed that. I also had a few students who really were overwhelmed by the process of choosing. That wasn't really something that they wanted to do. And for those students, I did have an option where there was a pre-selected set of activities, and they could choose to kind of just go that pre-selected route as well. So it's really easy to adjust this system to meet the needs of your students. So just to give you an idea about some of the activities. So all of this is housed in Google Drive, and you'll see I gave it a numbering system to make it easier for the students. And you'll see I have some News ELA articles. Like I said, these will auto-generate multiple choice questions. This is one of the activities from Zachary Jones. I recommend checking out his website if you have not. And then in column 2, we have our listening activities. And this includes different sorts of things. This is an advertisement for Movistar, which is a cell phone company, and you'll see it just has kind of a comprehension-based activity that goes along with it to make sure the students are engaged, listening. I think for the purpose of the self-guided work, I think I may have only given them this first sheet because this is more of the listening comprehension, and this second part, which is more production, was used in part 3, which we'll get to. I also have songs. So this is like a comedy song called Facebook. And the students have to fill in the lyrics. So all sorts of activities, really any sort of input activity that you would do on a regular kind of basis in your classroom could be used in this framework. Really, if you're curious about the activities that I use, you're welcome to reach out to me. I would be glad to share some more information about that, but I do want the focus right now to just sort of be the structure of this unit. So, we've gone through the vocabulario, we've gone through the input activities, and students are responsible for putting a check mark next to their own input activities when they finish. Now, in order to give feedback on the input activities, again, I really wanted the input process to be kind of hands-off from me. I wanted them to have a chance to have kind of unaffected interaction with the language. So for that, I actually just put together a binder with some answer keys, for the multiple choice questions and anything that had like a quote right answer. Obviously, there were some parts of the activity that were opinion-based or more extended writing, and those didn't have an answer key, but the students enjoyed being able to get that immediate feedback. And again, I did this when we were in my physical classroom. I had a physical answer key, but you could also house that somewhere in your Google Drive. Now, while they're going through all of these activities, I did ask the students to keep a diccionario personal, a personal dictionary. So I stressed very heavily with them that it was okay to guess on these. I really wanted them to practice using context and cognates to figure out words in these texts. So I stressed with them it's totally okay if you guess the meaning of a word and you guess wrong. And so they had to write the word in Spanish, do a small little sketch, and write the word in English. And this was something, I think by the end of the unit, I asked for them to have at least 20 words in their diccionario personal. I also, after we finished our input stage, did, and this is not something that every teacher would be comfortable with, but I did a quiz that was kind of text decoding based, where I asked them to use those same skills. I gave them a news article and highlighted 10 words and asked them to use context and cognates to kind of negotiate the meaning of those words from the text. And that was a low point quiz that we had during this unit to kind of evaluate some of those skills of using context and cognates to figure out new words. So, the last section of this unit, well, there are actually 4 sections, we'll get there, but the last section that was in this part was writing, so output activities. And this I did on Canvas, which was our learning management system, but you could also do the same thing through the Google platform. And basically for this, I posted Canvas discussion boards. So discussion boards where the students could post responses, respond to one another. And then this last activity was actually a small like poster project that they could complete. And that's why it was worth 2 checks. And they had to do 4 activities where they had to do kind of extended writing. And the hope was from this experience with the input activities that they would be able to take the information that they had learned, seeing the vocabulary in context, and apply that to their writing. And I would say it was very successful in the Canvas discussions. It was nice because I could go in and give them feedback on their proficiency level or their, if there were any recurring errors that needed to be addressed. But they also were able to see the work of their classmates through the discussion boards. So that was a way to get some immediate feedback on their responses and hopefully to see some modeling as well from their classmates. The final part of this unit, which I didn't include in the self-guided work, was once all of this was done, we had taken the quiz, we had done the Canvas discussions, folks had turned in their poster projects, we did do a whole week worth of speaking activities. So the students barely even had to bring a pencil to class that week. And we did activities like this is a dice game where depending on the dice you roll, you ask different questions. We did citas cortas, a kind of speed dating based activity. And all of that took place within the week after this self-guided work. So that's not included on the handout because that wasn't part of the student-directed, kind of student choice, self-guided part of the learning. So I hope that this has been helpful. Really, my goal in showing you this today was really just to show you the structure of what it looks like to do this kind of self-guided, self-directed work with students. Just to give you an idea of the time frame, I mentioned that the speaking activities we did over the course of a week. I would say from the beginning of the vocabulario to the output activities probably took about 2 weeks. So I gave the students 2 weeks in class to work on those activities. In class, the time was pretty unstructured. We started each day with our normal warm-up. That was a nice opportunity to touch base on some important vocabulary points or clarify problems that I had noticed coming up in the work. And I did ask students to complete a daily reflection in English, just reflecting on, their focus level for the day, what they accomplished, and they turned those into me as well, just to add kind of a level of accountability. But overall, I was really, really pleased with how this structure gave my students an opportunity to engage with the language in really authentic ways, in ways that they might be more likely to engage with it in the world without having me there to mediate for them. And I also think that it was motivating for them to have the choices given to them and to have those opportunities to feel like they could take ownership of their own learning. So, if you have any questions about implementing this sort of unit, whether in the classroom or in distance learning, please reach out to me. I'd kind of recommend you take my structure as a template and put in activities that you're comfortable with or that you know that your students enjoy. I will put a slide at the end that has my name and my email and my Twitter handle. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. I had so much fun talking through this today, and I look forward to hearing from some of you.